Hi everyone, welcome again to another tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to implement Apple Pay in your iOS app end to end. This is a video that I wanted to make for a while and now I have the chance to do it. Here on the left, we have a dummy iOS store app where you can just add items to your cart. And then when you check your cart, you're going to get the total and, well, let me add another item here so I can show you the total. What we want to do is to add the Pay with Apple button over here, and we can use it to check out in this app. So this works like this. Your app will use the Apple Pay SDK to generate the payment information. The Apple Pay SDK is basically going to spit out this encrypted token that you're gonna then send to your server, and then your server is gonna take that token and then send it to the gateway, and the gateway will then decrypt that token to get your actual payment information, and then sends it to the network, which then sends it to your card bank and get an approved or declined response. Then the network, we're gonna respond to the payment gateway. The payment gateway is gonna respond back to the server. It will be an API response that will say approved or declined, and then your server can share back that result to your app. The payment gateway we're using today is Mastercard Payment Gateway. Mastercard Payment Gateway is a payment processor that a merchant connects to process payments. Just because it's Mastercard doesn't mean that it only accepts Mastercard cards. It can process any type of payment. American Express, Visa, JCB, Discover, any card brand. Feel free to check out their website at mastercard.com/gateway. It's just a payment processor that happens to be owned by Mastercard but processes all payment methods. So this is going to be my payment processor here. For those who are not familiar with payment processor or payment gateways, those are basically the layer between you, the merchant, and the card networks. So you talk to the payment gateway/payment processor, and they talk to the networks, and the networks talk to the card issuer. Okay, the flow is simple. So let me show you how to code it. Here we are on Xcode. This is the struct for my cart summary view here on the left. So here the first thing I want to do is I want to add Passkit. And the Passkit library allowed me to get access to the Pay with Apple button right here, which is just a regular Swift UI button that you can just add to your app like this and assign any action to it. But it also provides you with a method that lets you check if you can do Apple Pay payments in the first place. So this will be PK payment authorization controller can make payment. If it's true, then you can pay with Apple. If it's not, then you display something else. Okay, I'm gonna rerun my app. So I add an item, I go to the cart, and here it is. We should add a little bit of padding around the button so that it looks nicer, much better. So now we gotta get to the fun part. The fun part is creating the payment handler class that will display the payment prompt and generate the payment token. So go ahead and create a new such file, call it payment handler. Here you're gonna need Passkit again and UI kit. You're gonna need to create this type alias, and here create a class called payment handler of a type NS object. And you will also need the following state variables. Okay, now you gotta create a method called start payment. It will look like this, and it will use the tab alias that we just created over here. Set the completion handler. Now you need to create the payment request and set the following values for it. First create it, and you add the items to the payment request, the cart items. So, okay, now we need to create the merchant identifier. We absolutely need this. So go to your Safari browser, certificate identifiers and profiles section, go to identifier. Here on the top right, make sure you select merchant IDs, and then here register a new merchant ID. Make sure merchant ID is selected. Give it a name, like for example SkateShop, and the identifier is going to be the same as the domain name. I'm going to use the same as my app identifier, SkateShop. That should do it. And this is going to be the same value that's going to go here. Okay, now create this, then go back to it, and here you need to create a new certificate. Our payment gateway is going to need this. So here it's going to ask you this, just say no if you're not in China. And here it's going to ask you for a certificate signing request. You get that from your payment gateway. Log into your gateway portal. On the Mastercard Gateway portal, you want to go to admin, device payments, and add new certificate. Here it's going to tell you to download the CSR that Apple was just asking for now. Then go to choose file. You want to upload that certificate signing request that you just got. Click continue. Then here you go. You generate the certificate. Just click download, go back to Mastercard Gateway, click on upload, choose file, and then just upload that certificate you got. Upload. And you're done on the portal side. Now you can go back to Xcode, go to your project, go to your targets. Under signing and capabilities, there's a little button here that says plus capability. Click on it, then select Apple Pay, refresh, and it's going to show you the merchant identifier you just created. You want to select this, and that's it. That's all for the setup. It's pretty quick and simple. You can close this, go back to payment handler, and go back to coding. Make sure that all these parameters in order, like the country code. I'll use US for now, USD for the currency, and these are the card types that I support: Amex, Visa, Mastercard, and MADA, which is a local payment network in Saudi Arabia. Then you need to display the payment prompt like this. Okay, it's getting upset at you here because you need to extend this class and add a few more methods. Here you go, and extend payment handler. You add the conformance, and here you need two methods. One that handles token generation, I will say, and then other one will handle when the payment is done. First one looks like this. Okay, let's take a look at this method and explain what it does. This is the method where the payment token, the same one that's going to go to your server, gets generated. Here, I get the payment data for it. Here, payment, PK payment. Okay, and I get the result too of the payment. And here I convert PK payment data. I convert the token payment data to JSON, because then I'm going to send it to my server as JSON. And then I assign it as into my state variable. I save it in my state variable so I can pass it back to the cart struct. Okay, and here I just handle my error. Okay, that's simple. Here, all you're gonna do is just dismiss the payment sheet, because it doesn't dismiss automatically after the payment is done. You gotta call this method. Okay, and that's all for payment handler. Now let's go implement it in the cart view. Here I recommend that you do some cleaning up before you start implementing payment handler. So first, I recommend that you create a new view for Apple Pay button. You can just do a regular VStack and then copy everything that you were doing for Apple Pay button. Just put it inside that VStack. I'm going to do Apple Pay button. Simple. And here, I can just paste everything related to the Apple Pay button. Okay, now we can go ahead here and create an instance of payment handler using the class that we just created. When the Apple Pay button is clicked, I want to first, of course, start the loading so I can show the user the loading indicator. Then I want to convert my cart items into Apple Pay items. So this is simple. Just do this like this. You can just loop through your items and make sure they conform to the PK payment summary item class format. The thing is, after this loop is done, you want to make sure you also add an item for the total. Yes, you gotta add it separately. Apple does not calculate that on your behalf. So here, it will just say total, and the amount is just gonna be the total of all the everything in my cart array. Cool. I now added the total. I added my items. Think now I can call start payment or start payment method. So here, I'll just do payment handler, start payment, and then I pass my items that I just created, and double click on the completion. I get my variables. Bool will be the result of the payment, and this will be my payment data JSON. Okay, here I'll say if result is successful, then I'll do the stuff that needs to be done. And here I'll just say error or whatever. I'll just print something happened. Oops. Not ops. Oops. Oh, I forgot to turn off the loading, so whether it fails or it succeeds, make sure to set loading to false. So here and here. And for now, just to make sure this is working, and I want to show you what I'll just print out the payment data, how they look like. So I'll print out payment data JSON to you. Well, so here's the thing about testing this. You can't use the simulator because the simulator is not going to return any real data. It's just going to return a well, basically no data. It's gonna return 0 byte, so nothing. It's gonna come in payment data JSON, and then your app is gonna crash in the simulator. If you want to test Apple Pay, you need to use a real iPhone with a real card added to your wallet. So I'm gonna plug in my phone to my computer, to my Mac. I'll show you on my phone using some video editing tricks how that looks like. Here's the app again. I add a couple of items, and then I go to the cart, and then I click on Pay with Apple, and then I get the payment total. I get 65.98. Click on it, and I can see a breakdown of my cart items right there. If I close this and then confirm my payment, it says processing payment, just generating the token, and the payment is a success. Now let's go back to Xcode and show you the data output. Here we are back to Xcode. You can see that the payment data was generated successfully. So this is the data right here. All of this is what you're gonna then pass to your server, so you can complete the payment using the payment gateway. So the front end part is mostly done. Now we can go ahead and start working our backend endpoint that's gonna take this encrypted payment token right here, and then send it to the network for authorization. Okay, so this is my NodeJS project where I'm gonna be building my backend endpoint that's gonna process the Apple Pay payment. Before we start coding here, it's better to just validate that the API actually works using Postman. Okay, so here we are on Postman, and this is a code sample that I just copy pasted from the Mastercard Gateway documentations, the Apple Pay documentation they have. It's pretty straightforward. You just put the amount, the type of the transaction, and the token that you obtain from Apple Pay. You just slap it here as a JSON string, not a JSON, a JSON string. Here I cleaned it up a little and I removed the placeholder data that they have, which I'm gonna replace then with my own data. So I'm gonna go back to Xcode right here. I'm gonna just copy the stuff that Xcode gave me and copy it and paste it to the Apple Pay request on Postman, just to validate that the API works before I implement it in Node.js. So let's do that. And let's try just sending the request. I'm getting an error, so probably I messed something up while copying the values, so let's try that again. Okay, here we go again, really careful. There we go. So the payment is declined, but the authorization is successful. So it's fine that the payment is declined, because our goal in Apple Pay implementation testing is not to get an approved response. It's to get some sort of response from the issuer. This is how we know that the message is passing correctly to the card network and then coming back with a response. Now we can go ahead and implement this in Node.js. A quick shortcut to coding this that you could do is you can go to Postman, just go ahead and remove all of this and replace it by a placeholder like underscores, for example, and click on the code button here, then click on the menu, and then here you'll see Node.js Axios. Click on that, and that will give you a code sample that you could just copy and then paste here in your Node.js project. But we need to make some modifications. For example, I don't want to use authorize. I want to debit the customer immediately. So I'll just replace authorize with pay. My currency, I want to get it from the clients. So request body currency. I'm going to do the same thing with the amount. Here in device payment, now you see why I removed that, because I just want to do this. I want to do string of JSON, stringify, and I'll also get the token from the client side. So body token. I'm going to have the client side pass it as a JSON object, but I'm going to convert that JSON object to string and send it. And nothing to be done in transaction. So that's all that we need to do here. Config should be already good, except one thing though. I want to get the order ID also from the client side. I'm going to generate that randomly, and this is going to be request body order ID. I'm gonna just do the same thing over here, just for simplicity's sake, but you don't have to. And that should be all. After that is all said and done, this thing over here is gonna respond back. So I'm gonna print it out in the console just for debugging, but I will also send response. Where is it? Response. First I gotta change this. Res, because it's conflicting with the response up here. So response dot status 200, and then I'll send whatever I get from Mastercard Gateway. So res dot data. Cool. The error message, and I'll send a code 500 instead. That looks good. I don't think I missed anything here so far, but we wouldn't know unless we test. So to test, just run Firebase emulators start, and let's hope this thing starts. Okay, so it has given me an endpoint here to test with. I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna go back to Postman, and I'm gonna test it, and then I'm gonna just hit send to test this. Okay, cool, it worked, meaning that our endpoint is fine. Now we can go ahead and deploy it to production. So in my case, I do that by doing Firebase deploy. Okay, Firebase has returned my production endpoint here. I'm gonna go back to Postman and test it, see if it works just like the sandbox endpoint. And it does. It's still returning a good response. Now I can go ahead and implement it in the app. And to implement in the app, here's another shortcut you can do. I'm removing again all the big values, and putting a placeholder instead. Then I'll go again to code, click on the drop down menu, and then all the way here at the bottom you'll see a sample for Swift. And then you can just copy that in your code. Here, actually it would be better if you just create a new method for requesting the payment. So request, copy that sample that you've got from Postman here. We'll modify some things here. So first thing, you remove this post data. You're gonna replace it with this, and you're gonna replace post data with the serialized version of your array here. Okay, so that's one thing you gotta do. The second thing, you gotta if let error equal error, and I'll tell you what the error is, like this: error localized description. If there's no error, then I'll return my data, and I'll do that like this. And here, if it fails, just do completion false. Okay, cool. This is my payment request method. Okay, I think we have everything we need here. So let's go ahead and implement this payment request method. Go back to your cart, remove all of this stuff, we don't need it anymore. And here is we're gonna implement that request result. I'll call this, and actually I'll move my loading to here, and here I'll set self payment finish to whatever the result is, and I'm gonna use this value to display to the user that the payment is done when it's done. Go back to your cart here, and then say if self payment finished or payment not finished, we're gonna keep showing the Apple Pay button. Otherwise, we are going to display a little view that just says payment done, and we're gonna display under just a nice little check mark with the color green. So let's try this and hope nothing breaks. Took a break, and now we're back to show you the final steps of this tutorial, which is displaying the result to the cardholder. Currently the app shows you if the payment is done, but we want to also display what was the result of the payment, which could be declined, approved, stolen card, expired card, invalid card number, and 99 other possible responses. Currently, under request payment here, you're just printing out the data. So don't do that. Instead, just do this. Convert that data into JSON, and there's a particular object inside that JSON called response. Get that as an optional array, because it could be nil if there's no response returned by the card bank. So that's why you put optional here. So you get that, and then you print it out, and let's print it out to see what it looks like. So I'll show you on the console. This is what the response object looks like. The gateway gives you the recommendation, and they give you a number, which is the response code. If it's approved, it's going to be 00. If anything else, then it means that the payment's failed. Here it says it explicitly declined, and here it says why, the reason why, invalid card number. So we want to go back here and request payment and give that back, return that back as a result for request payment as well. So instead of just bool, do also bring any array as an optional, pass nil here and response MJ here. Down here you want to add gateway response. First check if the gateway response is nil, because if it is, it means you had a gateway failure. In that case, you want to display to the user there was a gateway failure. This means that the payment haven't made it out past the gateway to the network, to your card bank. So the error is on the app or the server or the gateway level. Okay, cool. We also need to add this as a state variable, so let's do that. So, okay, if it's not, then you can go ahead and process that response. So first thing, get the acquire code like this and check if it's 00 means approved. I'll make sure to get it as a string because that'll be easier for you to compare. So if it's 00, then you can say that the response is approved. And if it's anything else, then the payment failed or got declined, and you need to display to the user the message of that decline. So here it would be invalid card number. Just copy this over, put it here, and instead of acquire code, just use acquire message. In either case, the payment is done, and you can set loading to false. Okay, we also need to handle what we display to the user when the payment is done. If response message is approved, and only if it's approved, then you display the green check mark that says payment done. If it's anything else, then you want to display payment failed, and you want to display payment error, and then just do that message here. Oh, don't forget to make this red. Okay, now let's test this out, see what it looks like. Running on Xcode, and let's go back to the app. Here I am in the app. I'm gonna add all the items for my final test. This is the cart. Click pay. Check the items. All good. Confirm. Token is generated. Payment request goes out to the gateway. Comes back. Here's the response. Invalid card number. And this is the end-to-end implementation of Apple Pay with Mastercard Gateway. Pretty easy, pretty simple, straightforward. That's all. I hope this was useful for both Mastercard Payment Gateway developers and Apple Pay SDK developers. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments. The source code, as always, is on Patreon in the description box below. And thank you for watching. See you next time.